Let's start off the conversation from the working group last night. There was so much good stuff. And I mean, to be honest with you, all of my clips come before the 30-minute mark. So it's only the first half of the show. But they were talking about tax cuts and borrowing. And there's a really interesting situation. We've seen him do this before about Damien Grant running away. Last week he did it when Simon Wilson told him not to shout. And Damien Grant said, but how do I get our ratings? So he made a stupid joke, but it was a running away situation. He does it again here when the bomber and the team are talking about borrowing for tax cuts, and they're using the 4-year plan. And so he basically discounts it altogether because they use the 4-year plan. We're only talking about a 1-year plan, even though you can very easily see the 4-year plan divided by 4, it's still the situation. They're talking about tax cuts, they're talking about borrowing, and they're talking about the numbers around Health New Zealand.
FUQ, follow-up question. The minister says we can't afford $1.4 billion for health, but we could borrow $14 billion for tax cuts. Again, is the electorate dumb enough to fall for this?
Well, the tax cuts, I don't think the tax cuts were costing $14 billion, or was that $14 billion?
We borrowed $14 billion for the tax cuts. That's what we borrowed.
Over what time period?
For 4 years. That was the 4 years.
And how much additional? The 1.4 was for what time period?
1 year.
12 months. Okay, so right there, Bob.
So rather than being honest and going, okay, so it's more like $3.5 to $4 billion per year, he chooses to go, you're talking about 4 years, we're talking about a year. It's not a valid question. Honestly, you watch the runaway. It's ridiculous.
The 1.4 was for what time period?
1 year.
12 months. Okay, so right there, Bomber, I think that just goes, your entire analysis, you're not interested in the facts, you want to paint a narrative.
So $1.4 billion out of $4 billion.
How am I meant to respond to your data when you simply make stuff up? You are comparing apples with rotten mandarins.
Michael, you have spearheaded the union's lawfare.
Bomber actually really did him a favour there to not show off his absolutely... I mean, that was running away. Because rather than dividing it by 4, he just said, that's not what we're looking at, and ran away.
A campaign against this government's public service slash and burn agenda. We've seen it with Etu at TVNZ, and we're seeing it in the Ministry of Education with the PSA. Will the minister manage to sack 3,000 jobs while hiding behind a commissioner without the unions fighting back? Because that's what they're hoping for.
Well, it's galaxy-level bullshit on the most basic analysis. So just take the core figures that you've quoted there, $1.3 billion. Now, if the average salary...
I don't mean to interrupt us, obviously, but I really want to highlight how important this part of the conversation is, right? How important it is and what horseshit is coming out from this national-led government.
That you've quoted there, $1.3 billion. Now, if the average salary of a middle manager at Health New Zealand was $200,000, which it won't be, that's 7,000 people. So you can fire 3,000 and you won't even be halfway there. It's just made up stuff. It is just made up stuff. And actually Aisha Verrill has revealed and confirmed today that actually a lot of the cost that's being dealt with here is around dealing with pay equity and getting the extra nurses in that we need to make the system work.
Right.
So what it is the government underfunding what are actually quite fundamental and basic parts
Follow-up
of delivering
question.
health services.
Why should voters accept a government who purposely underfunded public health and manufacturer funding crisis? If it's not that Health New Zealand is spending too much, it's because National refused to budget what they are spending.
Well, that's quite right. And what people I need to remember, and I'm sure will remember, is that this was a government led by Christopher Luxon that prior to the election was very clear and stood on many platforms and said that there will be no cuts to any frontline services. We're seeing that in health, we're seeing that in education, we're seeing it with budget services, we're seeing it with food banks, we're seeing it in customs.
And
right
again,
Mr.
Grant's about to come in and show his whole ass.
Those tax cuts, those $14 billion of tax cuts, and that figure's not made up. That's what the government has booked for them, has to be paid somehow. And this is the cost.
So where is the cuts to frontline health and education? Because what you just said, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that this government is cutting doctors, nurses, teachers. Is that what you're saying?
What I've just said is you can't cut $1.3 billion out of health without cutting into frontline. I've just given you the figures as to how you could possibly get there. It's 7,000 people being paid $200,000 a year. There's not that much fat. You could cut all of the middle management out, and you'd still have to cut.
But it's because they've underfunded the amount. They've underfunded it.
So it's entirely possible that they're not going to get the level of savings that they want.
Hang on. Now, see, this is the other trick these guys are doing. They're going, okay, I know National's saying this. Let's just accept that this is not what they're going to get. No. The party of business, the party of numbers, the last guys were the guys that got all their numbers wrong. You can't just sit there and go, okay. So let's just say that they're having a guesstimate and they're not going to quite get there. Sorry, Mr. Grant, you don't get to do that whilst you hold the last lot accountable for not knowing their fucking numbers.
So it's entirely possible that they're not going to get the level of savings that they want, right? So they've gone out there and said, we want to save 7 billion, what, blah, blah, blah. But, and like a lot of politics in New Zealand, the announcement is the thing, right? It doesn't matter what we do, it's just what we announce. So I think we can discard what he says.
But you don't bring less.
We just discard what they said.
Mr. Cut the health service down to size and get it ready for commercialisation in the 1990s as someone just to sort of waffle on. He's a guy, whatever you think of them, who's there to do stuff. So I don't quite accept what you've just said.
But at the moment, we have seen no cuts to doctors, no cuts to nurses, no cuts to...
That's such a false argument. It's such a false argument.
But it hasn't happened.
It's a false argument because you say, they haven't cut the doctor. No. What they haven't done is they haven't afforded and budgeted for an extra doctor to also be there as the population goes up. That's the problem.
Okay.
They haven't funded any of that.
I'll just add one more thing, and I'm sure Craig's got a lot he can add to this. Remember, of course...
It just looks like Craig is starting to boil. Just the way he's moving, it's like, okay, I've got spreadsheets, and I need it now.
One of the things that they didn't do this year, they said they would do is deal to the cancer drugs, and the way that they've then fixed up that political schmozzle has been to pinch money from forward budgets. So this is a problem that will only get worse.
And just in case you missed that pronunciation, because it was a bit garbled, to pinch money from forward budgets from the future. So this is just going to get worse and worse and worse. Now, this is how we run the show, Chewie. I kind of go blah, 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 blah during the clip, and then I shut up and you wrap up. So what would I say about the first clip?
Damien Grant is outclassed.
Yeah, very much so.
He is.
Yep.
He has gone into this fight completely unarmed. He's hiding behind the shield that is his deeply held principles, which is trying to fend off a guy with a sword with your mum's best tea saucer, I guess. It's hilarious. It's indefensible. And I'm here for it. Damien, continue. Please keep doing this.
And look, Craig's about to release the beast, talking about the Tsar, as we're calling the commissioner, and cuts. This is just a 90-second clip.
Craig, using commissioners to take over the entire public health system is an unbelievable act by this government that is serious and demanding of scrutiny, especially when that government is calling for 3,000 jobs. How will taking $130 million each month out of public health do anything other than cause social carnage on those dependent upon that public health?
Well, it's worse than $130 million a month. So that's $1.5 billion across the forecast period, across the year. But if we look at, the government's crowed a lot about putting $1.6 odd billion into health this year. The majority of that is paying for the Holidays Act. So the majority of that is just simply back pay that was owed. The new operational funding, net operational funding increases into health this year was 90.
I'm just going to highlight something. Damien Grant's very quiet right now. I just wonder why there's not much of a pushback.
Look, he's a tactical genius, a titan of intellect. He's just biding his time.
Okay.
Like he's waiting for his moment to strike, I'm sure.
He's about to pounce. Well,
is that right, Damien?
We'll see.
Net operational funding increases into health this year was $94 million. 0.4% increase. So on a net basis, there's no new money going in. Now you think about the population growth that's happened. You think about the needs that changes, because every year it's not just new people.
Of course. Damien's looking a little bit uncomfortable now as well. I'm just I don't know if Damien realizes this new camera cut they've got there. They're always on because he's squirming. I think that's the correct terminology.
I actually worked out what he's writing on his pad too. And like, it's
yeah.
hard on that angle, but I spent some time doing it, and it's like he's writing, "Oh shit, I'm fucked. I have nothing."
Okay. Well, I mean, we could be wrong. We'll have a look.
Mum, come and pick me up. These people are mean.
There we go.
You think about the need that changes, because every year it's not just new people.
Of course.
It's increasing levels of old people. It's increasing levels of need. Medical services get more expensive every year. And inflation goes up every year. So as a consequence, we know they need lots more money, and that's not what's happened at this budget. Ministry of Health Services, may you agree with them or disagree with them, they've been cut by 18%. So the actual ministry has gone by 18%. And if you want a signal of where the government's priorities are and really understanding sort of the language behind this, we're spending $30.1 million over 4 years on security guards and A&E. New money on security guards and A&E. We're spending $20.1 million on new doctors.
Wow.
So we're spending more money on new security guards than we are on new doctors.
Chewy, yours, sir.
Fuck, that's devastating.
Yeah.
Like, to the point of being indefensible. Absolutely indefensible. It's an indictment on our government. It's an indictment on our society. Like, you have security guards in your hospitals because people are getting angry.
Yeah.
Because they've been sitting in A&E for 9+ hours.
Yeah. So rather than fixing that problem, rather than fixing that problem, they get the sticking tape to put over it, being security guards to probably turf people out if they get frustrated and angry.
You are giving public health money to a private security company. Does that make anybody really angry? Makes me really angry. We need more nurses. We need more junior doctors. That takes more money. We need to pay them well to keep their knowledge and experience here and not have it fuck off to Australia. These guys don't get it. They see the cost of everything and the value of nothing.
What happens when someone writes down, "Oh shit, I've got nothing," where they quite often then go to is xenophobia. So in this next clip, we're going to hear all about the terrible third world doctors that this government's going to have to bring in to replace it. That's a very clear message that comes out from Damien Grant. Because you got to throw in there also fearful of those doctors that may have a different colour skin than us coming from overseas. And the other thing that I really want to highlight from this clip is I'm not taking the piss. He says this. He complains about phoning Health New Zealand and someone not picking the phone up. At the same time, him wanting to get rid of all the people in the back office who would be the people answering the phones. He can hold those two thoughts in his head somewhat for some reason. This starts off, though, with them talking about when did this government know that these numbers, they're talking about $130 million a month, when did they know? That's where we're going to start.
No, for me, the question is, when did they know that they needed to cut $130 million a month? Because this is not a new story. Last March, Te Whatu Ora officials were telling the Health Select Committee that the amount of money the government then promised at the budget was not enough.
Right. That's
so
right.
They knew in advance. So there's a real...
let's just take...
So hang on a second. If I can just give you one more number as well, which will be of interest to you, Damien, because I know you're a consumer. We're paying for some of this because we put tobacco taxes back up. Because we're delivering $1.5 billion across the forecast period, across 4 years, in new tobacco taxes, which costs 5,000 lives a year.
Yeah. Follow-up question.
Hold on, no. I just want to...
I like it when Damien Grant so confidently wants to come in, and then he doesn't obviously realise what's coming out, but you got to applaud them when they're confident. I mean, give them some credit for being confident.
I want to drill down on this. So... it doesn't really matter how much money we spend on doctors, does it? Because we don't have them.
It makes an enormous difference how much money we spend on doctors. It makes an enormous difference how much money we spend on a health service.
How many new doctors are we training every year?
We'll be training an additional
200.
We'll be training an additional 25 after this particular program, but we also bring a lot of new doctors every year into the health system.
Okay, so at the moment we have a health system an educational system that trains doctors. I think is it 200 doctors a year, or is it maybe?
I'll take your word for it. I don't know.
It could be 400.
Yep.
I don't know. I may be confusing them with dentists. Anyway, we train a very small number of doctors. The vast majority of those doctors immediately go overseas because they can get a whole pile of additional money. It's nothing to do with student loans. It's simply the amount of money that you can earn. We then bring in a whole bunch of doctors.
So what he just said is we're not paying our doctors in New Zealand enough. That's what he's just said. Without saying it, that's what he's just said.
Yeah.
Simply the amount of money that you can earn. We then bring in a whole bunch of doctors from God only knows where. So some of them I'm sure are excellent and some of them are terrible.
You know, I'm not racist. I have some Maori friends. Some of my friends are Maori. They're excellent. You know, we're just I'm sure that some of these doctors from God knows where. And this is not the worst part. He does mention the third world countries, I'm sure.
So some of them I'm sure are excellent and some of them are terrible. But the fundamental problem is that there simply aren't enough doctors, and if we are getting doctors in, we're probably pinching them from some third world country anyway. So all we're doing is.
But none of that, Damien, is an excuse for them spending less money than we should be.
Amen. We need to bond those doctors. I agree with you. Craig, follow-up question.
No, that is not the follow-up question. That's where we're wrapped up with there. Yeah, so just, sprinkle a little bit of xenophobia in there, and because nothing good comes from a third world country, Chewy. So they've got to be terrible, and some of them will be fine, but they're going to be terrible. But some of them will be fine. I've got a friend from a third world country, so I can say that. Chewy.
It's also this fantastic assumption that someone could just rock up at the border and go, "I'm a doctor," and we don't look into their qualifications at all.
Yeah, I'm a terrible one, but I am one.
Any time requalifying or having it just doesn't happen. They're just given the keys to the hospital and gone, wow, can you bring your own white coat from home? We really need doctors. But yes, hang on. There's
a really important question. Do third world countries have white coats? I mean, maybe they come with like a flax coat, or that's probably what he'd expect, wouldn't it? Like a made of leaves or something. Wouldn't that be what Damien Grant would expect?
I would assume.
Yeah.
I love it when Damien Grant stumbles onto a point, gets up, brushes himself off, and carries on without learning fucking anything. There could be an argument there of like, why don't we keep all the doctors that we train? Because they make more money. Okay, cool, Damien. Why do they need to make more money? Because they've got student loans. Fantastic. Is that something that we could do? Is that something that we can go, hey, look, we really need, this is a core thing that we need. More doctors and more nurses and more teachers and more police. And we need to keep them here. What's something that we could do? What's something we could easily do? Fucking get rid of their student loans, absolute nonce.
Or pay them more.
That'll
He's so
work.
close.
One or the other.
Yeah,
One or
he's
the
so
other.
close. He's the gift that keeps on giving. I said this last week. All right. I've just written up this clip as some more truth by Craig. So let's go listen to Craig Renney spitting some truth.
Now,
Craig, if Health New Zealand with the tobacco industry, would this government be sacking staff?
This is the question for the night, their poll. If Health New Zealand was the tobacco industry, would the government be sacking staff? That's their poll that they ran through the night.
People being cut now.
Craig, if Health New Zealand with the tobacco industry, would this government be sacking staff?
Absolutely not. Health spending per person this year is going to fall in real terms $223 per person.
I love having you on the show.
But one final number, just for Damien here. Health spending, the number of employees as a proportion of the overall workforce that are in the public sector. That was 20% under Chris Hipkins, 20% under Jacinda Ardern, 20% under Bill English, under John Key, under Helen Clark, under Jenny Shipley.
Yes.
It was 20%. I can go back to 1994 when it was 30.
Sorry,
it's
Craig,
20%.
The 20% is what? Sorry, just
20% of all of the employees.
Just quietly, they were talking over each other. Bomber said, "What is it now?" And he said, "It's 20%." So it's exactly what it's been for the past 30 or 40 years.
It's 20%.
The 20% is what? Sorry, just
20% of all of the employees in the workforce are public sector employees.
And that's been the same
And that's been the
throughout the
same
time,
since basically it was actually a bit higher. It was 30% in 1994.
So just help me. So you're not talking about core public servants. It must be because there's only about 45,000 of those.
Yes, but all of the people that you complain about who work in areas outside of the core public service.
Oh, you mean doctors, teachers?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Sorry, I understand. Sorry,
It takes them a while to get. Yeah.
Well, okay, all right. So keep going with the story. Sorry, Craig.
So essentially, when people complain about this explosion in
It's not really true, is it?
It's not true at all. All that's happened is the number of workers has grown. The number of workers in the public sector has grown at the same rate.
The only people who get hysterical are the taxpayers union. I wonder why. Quick round pop.
So there you go, Chewy. Another piece of the evidence that we've been saying for a long time is that there is no explosion, that the differential between public servants in the past and public servants today is nothing. But like we talked about yesterday within various media cycles in America, the narrative they've sold has been picked up on, has been believed, and now we're talking about a bloated bureaucracy. It's not true. It's not true. I've got one more clip to play, but you got anything else, sir?
Yeah. I just want to acknowledge something that's bubbling away in the comments there, talking about how good Michael Wood is, and it was a shame that he had to leave Parliament. This is part of the reason why I was so fucking angry for doing the big stupid thing and having to leave.
Yeah,
like he's a very effective dude. This is why I can't understand why he dragged his ass and made Chippy look like a fucking idiot for literal months. Very frustrating.
As you often do, without knowing it whatsoever, is you predict the following clip or piece I'm going to show, because this is a bit where Michael Wood actually talks about what Labor did when it comes to child poverty, because that's obviously a big criticism of the right at the moment as well, how Labor did nothing. And this is Michael Wood speaking to that. We've got about 2 minutes here.
We made progress. Under the two Labor governments, one of the things we did actually manage to achieve was to largely stop income inequality from growing, dramatically reduce child poverty. And that was largely through income transfers, working for families, stabilising and growing the state housing stock, and policies at the lower end of incomes policy, things like the minimum wage.
But it's not enough, is it?
But it's not enough.
The structural problem of neoliberal capitalism continues to destroy the egalitarian dream. And yet the Labour Party were the ones who bore this. Oh, you're loving this, so just let me go. The Labour Party was the creation. This is the 40th year. At some point, will the left pause and go, what the fuck happened there?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, look, as I said, we've got a country in which structurally for 30 or 40 years, we have had things that haven't been addressed. We did make a serious start in all those areas that I talked about.
First great steps, but they've all been wiped out in 100 days of this crazy new government.
This is really important for me to say, because one of the political attacks of this government is that the previous government didn't do anything about child poverty. Wrong on every measurable thing that we put in the budget and measured every year in the budget. We've reduced child poverty.
Yep.
But it's not enough.
Except the last budget where the numbers got worse, didn't they, Mr. Wood?
In this budget. That's right.
The truth.
Such confidence. You have to congratulate, because if you say something loud enough, even if you're not right, people believe you. Such confidence. Imagine his school report. Doesn't matter what his grade was for the actual thing, but the effort would always be an A.
Numbers got worse, didn't they, Mr. Wood?
In this budget. That's right.
The last Grant Robinson budget, the numbers for child poverty got worse.
No,
I don't think that's right.
On your own measures, that is
that's
exactly
true.
true.
You're working.
The numbers got worse in the last budget, in the budgets that led to that.
The last Grant Robinson budget.
No, the last Grant Robinson budget was not. No, the numbers were still heading in the right direction. The only time the numbers turned was at this beef with this budget economic and fiscal update, where the numbers turned and we were missing all three of the major targets for child poverty.
But look, if I can just finish off. We were the government that took those steps, that brought in fair pay agreements, removed from play at the moment, but they will be back, which was a fundamental attempt to say that we have a labour market that has been rigged
Yep.
away from the needs of working people. That's something we started to fix, and we will get back to.
The working group, my friends, and as you can see, why we've only done half the show. It was dense with information last night. A bunch of super chats and stuff that have come in, Chewy, but sir, other than us having a new bromance with Craig Renney and maybe even Michael Wood, what are your thoughts?
Absolute cracking show from the working group. And as always, a pleasure to see the BHN pre-show crowd just absolutely dominating their chat. Well done. Well done indeed. Damien Grant walking head first, teeth first into a haymaker that everybody else saw coming is something that will lull me into a deep and peaceful sleep tonight. Thank you, Damien.